Hey hackers, I'm Will, one of the co-founders of ACI.dev. ACI.dev is an open source tool calling platform. We try to make it easy for developers to connect a large number of tools and functions to AI agents, while abstracting away all the annoying bits such as auth management, permissioning infra, and other annoying plumbing that you would typically need to do. There are two main ways of using ACI that I hope you will find useful. The first way is to use ACI to extend your developer workflow by bringing many different applications into your agentic IDE through a single unified MCP server and just two different functions. The second way to use ACI is as a piece of integration middleware as part of your agentic product. Now let's dive in. You can access our platform through a landing page. We have a generous free tier which you can get started with using Google Login or any email account. And upon signing in, you'll see the main app store with all the integrations that are available to use. You can sort them in different orders or filter by applications you have already configured or by different supported authentication types. For example, OAuth2, API key, or even ones that don't need any authentication in order to use, like Archive. Now, to start using ACI, we want to navigate to Agent tab on the left-hand side. And in our abstraction, we tie an API key to a single agent. So we are architecture and framework agnostic. You can do multi-agent systems or single agent, doesn't matter. Let's create a new one by creating create agent, and we'll call this demo. Note that whenever a new API key is created, we can also choose which existing configured apps we want to enable for this particular API key. Now you can change the apps that are enabled for an API key at any time by clicking the edit button under the allow to apps column in the agents tab. Additionally, we also provide a natural language guardrail called custom instructions. For example, you might give your agent access to excess search, but don't want it to search anything beyond open source. In this case, you can specify that, and we will block any tool use that violates these instructions. Okay, so now that we have the API key set up, let's go and add an app, maybe like Vercel, that would be useful for my agentic IDE to access. So here, once you click in, you can see all the Vercel functions that would be available to use after it is configured. And you can also see the corresponding JSON schemas if you need to reference them. Now let's configure this. And you'll see that we'll need an access token in order to do this. We'll also choose the demo agent as the only one able to access this. Now for the linked account owner ID, this is really just a username that you define. If you were using this integration in your own agentic product, you can programmatically tie this into your own username logic. So let's create a new access token on Vercel to bring in. Okay, so that's created. We'll copy this over to ACI for the integration to use. Let's save this. Okay, seems like there's a small error. Let's try this again. Okay, seems like we're on the wrong project. Okay, so let's try this again through the linked accounts tab. We can add account, and then you can basically do the same thing to add a new linked account for any app you have configured. Awesome. So let's also add GitHub, which should come in handy. And in this case, GitHub uses the OAuth2 authentication method. So you can either provide your own OAuth2 client, or you could use our default one. We'll just use our default one in this case. And I'm also going to enable this only for the demo agent API key. Now, if you were serving this to your end user, you can copy over the OAuth2 URL for your own end user to log in, but in this case, we're just going to link my own account. So here I'm going to authorize GitHub access. Cool. So that should be working now. Now if we go to agents, we can see that we now have a long list of apps set up. So how do we actually use this? Right. Well, to use it in my agentic ID, let's go to our documentation and look for the section on MCP servers. So we have a section on SDKs and a section on MCP servers. Let's go to the Unified MCP server section, and you can scroll down to find the configurations to set up the MCP with different hosts like Cursor, Windsurf, and others. So let's just copy this snippet over to Cursor. And we just have to go to Cursor settings, navigate to tools and integrations, and then add custom MCP. And we'll just drop this snippet in. And we just have to replace the linked account owner ID with the username that we've been consistently using earlier. And then also the API key, which we created earlier for the demo agent. So let's copy this over to Cursor. Cool. Now make sure you save this config file after you've done that, and check Cursor settings. And just for good measure, we're going to disable and re-enable the MCP server to make sure that it's running properly. If you've used MCP with Cursor before, you'll notice that we only have 3 tools enabled for some reason. Even though, when we check the apps that we have configured and connected, even just between GitHub, Gmail, Supabase, Vercel, and Render combined, there should be over 100 different tools that are loaded into our MCP. So if we loaded all these into Cursor directly, it'll result in tool overload and context rot. As a rule of thumb, 40 to 50 tools is kind of the maximum that you typically should be able to load. But with ACI, we condense all these tools into just 2 tools, search and execute. And this way we avoid the issues of tool overload by providing tools only when an agent actually needs it. And we also additionally provide a third tool that references our own documentation to help your agent use ACI itself in a product build. Now we can go ahead and use all of these platforms simultaneously through our agentic IDE, where we previously couldn't. And this could hopefully accelerate your developer workflow by letting your coding agent juggle between all these different platforms like Vercel, GitHub, Supabase, Render, or more at the same time. So you see, relevant tools are only loaded when they're needed, so the agent is able to maintain high tool use accuracy. Now, additionally, as these things are executing, you'll also be able to go to our platform to see the logs for the tool call executions. So you see here, it's managed to retrieve all the different projects I have on my GitHub, Vercel, etc., and also Supabase. Now let's check on our platform. If we go to the log dashboard, you can also see the history of all your tool calls through the Unified MCP. You can go in, look at how the executions happen, and to help you debug if needed. Now, if you instead want to use this in an agentic product rather than your IDE, you can visit our SDK section of our docs, and then go and reference ACI agent examples. So here you can see different usage patterns with popular frameworks as well as inference providers. You can also find this document if you go to our main GitHub repo and go to the quick links section. So you can, in order to use this, you can also directly ask the MCP to help you incorporate these patterns into your code base. Now, for example, I might want to integrate Gmail into a personal assistant agent I'm building for my end users. I can configure this in a similar fashion to what we did before. But before I bring this into my code, I can also test out the functionalities through the agent playground. I can test that the Google integration would actually work before bringing it into my code base. So here you see me testing that. So that's all I have time for. Thank you very much for checking out ACI. I hope you find this useful. Please join our Discord if you need any support. Cheers.